Tonight on the Black Channel, we present to you a Black Channel proud tradition. As I sign off on my programs when I say that we're here every weekend, holidays, some days in between, and this is the holidays part of it here, and in particular on Dr. King Day here. I want to let you all know in advance, I'm going to get a copyright strike on tonight's program. There's going to be a copyright strike on tonight's program because there must be, because I need to remind you of something. I know that you are all used to the usual things that I play on this day, but tonight is going to be a little bit different. Now, we are going to remind you of what we usually come here for, but I also want to remind you of how our history and our story became immediate. They immediately went to work writing it and rewriting our history in real time. First, they spent decades playing I Have a Dream. They spent decades telling us the only thing that mattered is integration. And yet, amazingly, there were things like this out there that even if Dr. King had never risen to the heights of notoriety that he attained, you hear this right here and it links up perfectly. No flaws whatsoever. It links up perfectly with our mission and our position to this day.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with. And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
You better believe it. There's a reason why the media spent decades playing one thing over and over again, repetition, programming it, making sure that it was heard in every hoot and holler, and yet this was buried? And only those of us who remembered that he said that, we were the only ones talking about it. But to this very day, the mainstream corporate media does not talk about this because they don't want to show you that. They want you to think that we're the first folks who ever thought about cut the check. They don't want to sit up here and tell you, oh yeah, by the way, Dr. King said that. Oh, so in other words, this is part of an ongoing crusade. He knew it then. Well, then again, they've always known. Their job was to deceive you and bamboozle you into thinking that nobody ever thought about that. Nobody ever said that. No, they wanted to show you all something different. They wanted to show you something different. They knew what they were doing the whole time, and then they immediately went to work to show you something different. Understand here, Dr. King was murdered in 1968. And that seems like a lifetime ago. For those of you watching this now, listening to this now, that seems like a lifetime ago. But I want to roll the clock back. I want to roll the clock back. I want to roll the clock back to when television was king. I want to roll the clock back to a time when over half the United States population was watching the final episode of the TV show MASH. MASH, which was really made to be a commentary and comfort on the Vietnam War to a nation that was very much split and traumatized by it. That was the TV show MASH, but there was another television show that ran at about the same time. There was another television show, and this one was focused on us. And I want you all to see what the programming here is. Now, before I get to that, before I get to it, I want to make sure I put this in its proper context for you because I don't have the ability to play the entire program for you here. There was an episode of The Jeffersons called The First Store. That episode, now The Jeffersons ran from 1975 until 1985. So The Jeffersons ran for 10 years. 1975 to 1985. It was a spinoff from the Archie Bunker show, All in the Family. And in 1980, they had an episode in 1980 called The First Store. And it was about George Jefferson wanting to open his first store. But you see, in this episode, however, it was a flashback. A flashback to 12 years earlier, 1968. So the episode airs in 1980, but during the story of the episode, they do a flashback to 1968 when Dr. King got killed. And in this episode, George Jefferson's son, Lionel been out there in the streets putting in work. Lionel been out there in the streets with the revolutionaries. That's where Lionel was. And as you can see, Lionel's getting ready to walk toward the front door. And George and Wheezy are like, "Where you going, Lionel?" He's like, "Oh, I gotta go see about something." So there's a reason I'm going to play this, and I'm going to get a copyright hit tonight, but it's necessary to do this. For those of you who did not know or did not remember, now, when I was a child, I remember this episode in particular. It was hard to put the pieces together when I was a little kid. As I got older, of course, I understood it, but the first times I saw this, I wasn't really even clear what they were talking about. Of course, I was a little kid back then. I mean, little. And many of you were. But for those of you who haven't watched this in decades, hadn't seen it in decades, please understand this is on network TV. For us in Louisiana, it was CBS was the network it was airing on. This network TV, and Norman Lear, Mr. Norman Lear was the guy they brought in to produce these shows. Not a black person. They got Norman Lear to do it. And I want you all to see just 12 years, only 12 years after Dr. King was assassinated. Not 30. This is 12 years. So everybody watching this show at that time, they were alive and had seen Dr. King get killed. They saw the March on Washington. They saw the marches. They had seen him get killed. So just understand that. Donald Trump was elected, a decade ago? So for those of you talking about Trump's re-election, just think it's as fresh in your mind today as Dr. King was when he got assassinated when this episode aired. And I want you to see how the television network wrote this episode. Now, this is the end of it, but this is the only important part. I want you to watch how they wrote this episode. Watch how they wrote this, and you tell me if it seems a little familiar.
See y'all later. Where do you think you're going? Out? I am going to let this country know that this time they have pushed us too far. Look, Lionel, I know how you feel, but violence is not the answer. Oh, yeah.
And I just wonder, Mr. Lear, I wonder if this is the message that Norman Lear would have sent to his people in Israel. I'm just curious. I'm wondering if this is the message that Norman Lear would have sent to his people. I'm just curious. For some strange reason, I'm skeptical that this is the message that he would have sent to his people in Israel under these same circumstances. It's very, very important to remember this, because remember, by this time you got 12 years out. So people who had had children by this time, their children would be a decade old if they had children when Dr. King was killed. So just understand, this programming was not just for the parents. This was also for the children, because syndication was already a real thing. They were looking forward that this was going to be a message that would program and resonate not for years, but for decades. And you just take a look at what they were telling us to do. This is what they were telling us to do.
You know that this time they have pushed us too far. Look, Lionel, I know how you feel, but violence is not the answer.
Oh, yeah, well, what is the answer? Non-violence? I mean, that's what Martin Luther King thought, and you see where it got him.
Lionel! Martin Luther King helped accomplish a lot for our people.
Oh, sure, he tried, but what did he really accomplish? I mean, nothing's changed.
You're wrong, Lionel. Lots of things have changed. Maybe not as fast as we'd like, but they're having a lot of changes. Look, I remember the first day I realized that I was colored.
Black.
Okay, black. I was sitting on the doorstep with my father. Then I hear this siren screaming loud and loud and loud and coming closer and closer and closer, right? Then all of a sudden, this great big red fire truck comes racing around the corner right past our house. So I'm all excited, you know, I look at my father and say, wow, when I grow up, I want to be a fireman. And he just looked at me and he smiled and said, yeah. Don't you know, Georgia, that they don't let Negroes on the fire department? And for a long time after that, I felt like less of a person just because I was black. Then Martin Luther King comes along and reminds me that I am just as good as everybody else. He gave me hope.
And then Dr. King came along and reminded him. And then Dr. King did. Now, first of all, to back this up just a little bit here, because I didn't want to interrupt it too much there, but I don't want it to get too far along before you all see what happened here. If you all listen here, this is really like a time capsule, and you can hear all of the societal changes that were made. George Jefferson, the old Negroes. We're talking about they were colored. And they were talking about how much things had changed, but it never changed as quickly as you want it to. Things don't change as fast as you want. And you know, Barack Obama said that on his way out the door, remember? That, well, things in America, you know, things don't change as quickly as we like. Well, yeah, he can say that everything's going just fine for him. So he has no problem telling people about, well, it ain't changed as fast as you like. Well, everything's changed for him.
Helped accomplish a lot for our people.
Oh, sure, he tried, but what did he really accomplish? I mean, nothing's changed.
You're wrong, Lionel. Lots of things have changed. Maybe not as fast as we'd like, but they're having a lot of changes. Look, I remember the first day I realized that I was colored.
Black.
Now, yes, they had some black folk who did work on the Jeffersons. So, of course, yeah, they ain't running things. So please don't be deceived about that. Please don't, people. Don't ever be deceived about that. But yes, that right there where we make the transition from colored, a term foisted on you by the segregationists, to black, a term that we selected for empowerment. And you'll notice it is the younger generation that is saying that the status quo will not do. I need you to understand that that is the arc of history. It is the young people who say that the status quo will not do. It's the old folk who get settled in and comfortable and worn down because they've gotten used to the way things are. That is why nature brings in a new generation. That new generation tests your beliefs with a clean slate, not carrying your social and mental and emotional baggage, and then they determine whether or not you're still correct because they're not married to the concepts or the experiences or the agenda you might have had. And when the young came up here, they were like, we done with that colored thing. We're done with it. But then I want y'all to hear the rest of what George had to say here.
Right? Then all of a sudden, this great big red fire truck comes racing around the corner right past our house. So I'm all excited, you know. I look at my father and say, wow, when I grow up, I want to be a fireman. And he just looked at me and he smiled and said, yeah. Don't you know, George, that they don't let Negroes on the fire department? And for a long time after that, I felt like less of a person just because I was black. Then Martin Luther King comes along and reminds me that I am just as good as everybody else. He gave me hope. He gave me the confidence to go out there and start my own business, and that's what I'm going to do.
Dr. King gave it to him. Not George Jefferson's father. Not George Jefferson's father. Well, the father's telling you what can't happen. It's not George Jefferson's father, not his mother. And if y'all saw the show, you know what his mother was like. No, it's Dr. King. This wasn't something that came up intrinsically from where your roots are, the people around you. No, before Dr. King introduced the concept, you didn't have any faith in yourself there. Folks, please remember, this is fresh out the 60s. This is not decades after the 60s. This was 12 years later. 12 years after Dr. King got killed, only a decade after the 1960s. That's when this aired. So everyone talking about this was contemporary at that time. As contemporary as Trump's first term is for us now. This was contemporary. So see what the mindset was that they were pushing. See what the mindset was and the programming, TV programming, that they were pushing on us at that time. And you might catch that little subtle subliminal that they just snuck in there.
Pop, see, you're dreaming. I mean, we got no car. We got no TV. Mom's got no job.
No loan.
No loan?
That's right.
Well, then how are you going to start your business?
No, I don't know, Lionel. I want to do it. You can do whatever you want, if you really want to. Right, Weave?
Your father is right, Lionel. We shall overcome.
Now, that right there, by the way, is a far cry from what you usually see today on their programming, by the way. That's a far cry from it. A black woman who follows the man's lead, a black woman who supports the man's program. That's a far cry, number one, from what you see today, and number two, what Weezy was usually doing. This was one of the few times that Louise was not giving George a bunch of back talk and a bunch of sass. This is one of the few times that she was actually doing what they showed white women doing on Father Knows Best and the Brady Bunch. You want to talk Leave It to Beaver, these white sitcoms from that era, or just right before this era? Yes, a marked difference from what you usually saw Louise doing. This is one of the few times that, by the way, some of that solidarity there, what kind of programming was Mr. Lear trying to push here? I did that because I wanted to show you how these events were being portrayed on network television. And back then, everybody was watching network television because that's all you had was 3 channels. So the whole nation was soaking this in, particularly black society, which is why all of you go talk to your parents and grandparents. Everybody saw the episode because it was basically required reading. And did you see how that went? I want to play this next part so that you all can see. She's going to play with them saying that Dr. King was killed and that this is a speech that he had just given. I want you to see how they were memorializing this on the Jeffersons.
If you really want to. Right, Weave?
Your father is right, Lionel. We shall overcome.
Night before his death, Reverend King delivered the following speech to striking sanitation workers in Memphis.
We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And he's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
And this was the way that episode ended. This was how they were suggesting to us to take and respond to that event. This was how Norman Lear and the American Broadcasting Systems, no, I'm not trying to say American Broadcasting Company, I mean the American Broadcasting System of Television, this was how they were telling us to respond to the racial assassination of Dr. King. This was how they were telling us to respond. That when you sat up and gave the correct natural response there, that it's time to hit the streets and the revolution, they told you, oh, no, don't do that there. Just what you need to do is sit at home and have your lip poked out and just reflect and understand that that doesn't change anything. Violence doesn't change anything. If violence didn't change anything, then why are they committing violence against Dr. King if it doesn't change anything? If violence doesn't change anything, then why are they out there killing Dr. King if it doesn't change anything? So I want to do this to let you know that they took an active hand in trying to influence how we responded to that event. This was not 30 years after Dr. King was killed. This was a little over a decade after he was killed. And the nation went to work immediately. They went to work immediately after he was killed in 1968. They immediately went to work because they knew we were hitting the streets, and they immediately went to work to characterize his legacy. And so the spin masters and the brainwashers over there at the FBI and the CIA and all their think tanks, they seized on the March on Washington, removed everything else from the day, and only kept repeating over and over and over and over again. I have a dream, I have a dream, I have a dream. That was all you were allowed to remember. And they played it over and over, and every time you looked up, that was the only thing. Dr. King and I have a dream. Don't you all understand that that was a psyop? I think today now we're a little more sophisticated. I think we all understand now that that was a psyop. You all can go and take a look at the hearings of the U.S. Congress about the CIA when they were questioned about that, when the CIA was questioned about that, and they were asked, do you have any operatives that work in the newspaper industry or in the television industry? And to which he responded to the man and said that we need to address that in executive committee. I need to remind you all that the New York Times, I'm not breaking news here, the New York Times worked with the CIA. I'm not making that up. You can go Google that for yourselves. The CIA has worked with the LA Times. The CIA and the FBI have, the government agencies have worked with those newspapers. While you're talking about Biden calling Twitter, your so-called newspapers of record here have worked directly with the CIA. They got agents. The CIA has had agents and operatives and basically a desk at the New York Times and worked hand in hand. If you deny me, if you think I'm wrong, why don't you go Google it real quick and find out something? Go Google it for yourself and go find out something. If you think I'm exaggerating, well, it could have been like that, Jason. I mean, it wasn't that deep. Yeah, it was that deep. All those papers, people. The New York Times and LA Times and the Post are just the ones they got caught with. No, they have them everywhere. The goal has never been to just have a silver bullet. No, you have to have saturation. They got to be everywhere. And so when you turn on your television networks and then you see that this is the way you're being told to, you take a look at this right here. Does this look like we shall overcome? Weezy just said we will overcome. Take a look at this right here. Take a look at the way Lionel was looking. Take a look at the way he was talking to his father and how he was responding. And then you take a look at how he ends up looking. And this was what they wanted you to walk away with, that the young lions who say that we are going to get out there and change things. And then they have the old folks telling them that you need to do something different and it's not that big of a deal. And, we just need to sit tight and Jesus will provide. But in the meantime, you sit still. I wanted to give you all one more reminder here that there's a reason why Norman Lear and CBS and all these folk produced this show for these reasons. I want you to understand why they did that. They did this for a reason. Because this, what you see on your screen, this is the epitome of what we were dealing with. This is the epitome of it right here, that generational gap. George Jefferson, at the end of the day, no matter what else they may have said for comic relief, this right here encapsulated Norman Lear's vision of George Jefferson. George Jefferson, at the end of the day, had little man Napoleon complex, and that he was here to prove something. And that he was looking to get acceptance. And that he was willing to play the game and go along with the status quo. And that was the point they wanted to make. Now, yeah, George may be a little bit of a smart mouth and sometimes sass off and smart off. But when it really comes down to nut cracking time, George ain't about that life like that. Well, let me rephrase that. Actually, I wonder. You know what? I'm going to try to do this really, really quickly here because actually, I might be slightly in error about that. I might be slightly in error on that. Maybe just slightly. I'm not sure. Because I remember something. It took me a little moment here, but I remember something. And they may not have it. So that may be a different thing. They may not have that. I know I'm kind of doing this on the fly with you all here right now, but they may not have it. I'm trying to look it up on YouTube, so they may not have that, which is, that would be unfortunate. That'd be unfortunate if they don't have that, and I don't want to slow things down too much here. But if you'll all remember, I'm like, okay, well, George is, not really all that big on here about that. He's not really that big about that. His son wants to hit the bricks and George wants to do something different. But you all can go look this up for yourselves. There was an episode of The Jeffersons where George got mugged. There was an episode of The Jeffersons once where George got mugged, and remember, he got stabbed. There was an episode of The Jeffersons where George got mugged. Remember, he got stabbed. And later, I think they stole his wedding ring. And so he goes and gets a black leather jacket and a baseball bat, and he winds up going back to go get Wheezy's ring. So I'm like, okay, well, so George Jefferson could do that. Oh, so George could be about that life. Not on the white supremacists, of course. No, not on them. But y'all remember that episode. He got stabbed and all right. His son wants to take it to the streets, and what they show you is that if you this is a message to the young black folk, the young black people of that time, that if you are looking to take to the streets, calm down now. Mama and daddy got a different idea. We knows you is angry, we knows you is upset, but you need to understand that don't change things. So the message being very clearly sent to the young is that when the society commits unbridled brutality against you, the only reasonable response is to tuck your head and hope for the best and just get used to the abuse. That's the kind of thing that doesn't change anything. Hitting the streets isn't what makes things stay the same. Hanging your head, that's what makes things stay the same. So I want to remind you all that they went to work in this society immediately after Dr. King was killed to program and influence what our response to it should be. And every time that you discuss the obvious response of the revolutionary energy, they went to work at every level to tell you that that's not what you're supposed to do. And no wonder after that, it got easier and easier for them to kill us and to kill the leaders. It got easier and easier after that. We're talking about one of the biggest shows on television at that time, and this was what they were telling you to do. By the way, 1980, and when did Ronald Wilson Reagan go into the White House? What? By the way, this episode in particular aired in 1980, and when did Ronald Wilson Reagan go into the White House again? Are you sure this wasn't a psyop? Are you sure? Are you sure? So please understand that the Dr. King that they sold you for decades, they were hoping that we would never see any of these things, but more importantly, they were hoping that we wouldn't even be interested in asking. They were hoping that we wouldn't even, by the time that my generation came of age, they were hoping that Dr. King would be a long lost memory, just I have a dream, that we wouldn't actually be interested in hearing all those things, and that it would be gone. It would be memory hold. And that we would watch I Have a Dream and figure that's all there is to it. They had no idea that we were a lot more woke than they ever imagined. And it would not be the civil rights generation that would lead us back to it. It would be our own investigation and our own resistance to white supremacy that would lead us back to it. We began a policy of believe nothing they say, question everything that they say. And what do you know? In the process of questioning them, you find out why you dirty, pathological, diabolical bastard liars. Dr. King was saying the same things that we were saying. No wonder you wanted our curiosity about him to start and end at I Have a Dream. No wonder you wanted our curiosity to start and end there. You didn't want us to check into anything else. Because you knew what we were going to find. Now, I need to remind you all that when these things were airing, when they were showing this, there weren't no computers back then. You didn't even have VCRs, people. We don't get that till the 80s. So you see, the ability to save these things and copy them yourself and preserve them yourself, you didn't have that. If they didn't play it on the radio or play it at the TV station, then it didn't get played. You had no way to independently preserve it and play it or copy it and share it amongst yourselves back then. So the only thing you heard from Dr. King was I Have a Dream, because that's all you would have access to. They had no idea that one day we'd have an internet. They had no idea that one day we would have recordable media. Need I remind you all that once again, the Recording Association of America and the Motion Picture Association of America both sued. They both sued when cassette players came into vogue and gave the ability to record. They sued. Do not believe me. Look it up for yourselves. I've covered this before. You all know it's true. The Recording Association of America and the Motion Picture Association of America sued when you had tapes that first audio cassette tapes and the record button on your boom boxes, the record button. They sued. They wanted to have these things. You could do everything except no record button. Same thing for VCRs. They didn't want VCRs. The Motion Picture Association of America, VCRs shouldn't have a record button. They took it all the way to the Supreme Court. That you should not have a record button on your VCR. All you can do is play things or listen to things, but you cannot independently preserve these things. They fought tooth and nail to prevent that from occurring, as they still do to this very day. Your ability to independently control and verify information, they have always had a war against that. So for those of you who did not know, by the way, we came a hair's breadth away from not having a record button on tape players and cassette players or even VCRs. We came that close to not having it. And they would have complete and total control of all information. And so you don't even know that Dr. King said, by the way, they gave these Europeans all this stuff 100 years before he gave this speech. They gave these Europeans all this, and they've deprived us of every step of it, and then told you that we need to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We are the only people who have earned everything we done gotten. Everybody else gets a hand out and a leg up. We are the only people who have independently gotten every single crumb of bread and every single penny in our pockets on our own. There is no privilege for us to plug into. We've had a system that's declared open warfare on us. We're the only people who have earned everything we've gotten. That includes the crooks. The crooks, the hoodlums, even the coons have to work 5 times harder than their white counterparts to get the exact same $1 bill. We're the only people who have to earn something. We're the only people who don't get help or assistance or unearned privileges. We're the only ones. If you see a black person with something, they earned that. There's no one to give them that. They have to earn it. Everybody else got somebody to give it to them. Hey, come on over here behind this corner. Let me hand you this right quick. We're the only ones that don't have anybody to say, hey, come over here. Let me hand you this right quick. We don't have that. And we never have. But they know it, and they keep repeating the lie to you that somehow you're being given something. And meanwhile, 95% of the wealth is in the hands of, the same folks. While they're claiming that somehow you've got some advantage. The brainwashing. They had no idea that one day they would wake up and you'd have an internet, and that we would actually take to researching these things ourselves independently. They had no idea that that was ever going to occur. They had no idea that it could occur, and they were terrified once they realized that it could happen. Their goal and their plan was to create a cartoon caricature of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and that would forever be your image of him, and that would be all you would be interested in. There was a reason that they did that for Dr. King, and they literally avoided and blacked out everybody else. Fred Hampton, Huey Newton, Medgar Evers, Malcolm X. They blotted out literally everybody else. The Black Panthers created the school lunch program, and no wonder they literally blotted out everything else. Don't you understand when you're in the middle of a government psyop? You use that term today, but they've been doing it now since the very beginning. And Dr. King was their biggest target. You see, when he got all those hundreds of thousands of people to come to Washington, D.C., J. Edgar Hoover looked over the Washington Mall and looked at the throngs out there and said, that is the most dangerous nigger in America. Because where you saw hundreds of thousands of pilgrims marching for justice, J. Edgar Hoover, because everything in the white supremacist mind moves for war, he saw hundreds of thousands of people that if all of them had a gun in their hands, you have the largest standing army in America. That was what he saw. And of course he would see that because they had no intention of stopping the American order of brutality and injustice against us. So your ability to organize is a threat. It doesn't matter how you do it. The very fact that you all found some common page to get on together, that right there is the problem. This goes all the way back. Let me give you a history lesson. This goes all the way back. When you talk about the slave codes, people, this goes all the way back. Way before J. Edgar Hoover, and yet he was a continuation of their way of doing things. If you get a group of black folk together, oh man, if you got 5 or 6 niggas sitting on the plantation, it's illegal for them to do that unless there's a white person present. No, it is illegal for you all to even get together in a small group unless there's a white person present. Now, this was way before the advent or creation of the so-called FBI. Way before that you have to be monitored. So when J. Edgar Hoover sees a group, why? You have to be monitored if you all even get together in a group. What is it about us being together in a group that would be such a threat? Well, you could get organized. Well, yeah, but, how do you build a house or whatever if you don't get organized? Well, we're okay with you building the house thing as long as it ain't too big, of course. So you see, we need to know about that. We need to know everything. We need to know if you all are organizing. There is no such thing as a harmless group of niggas organized. There's no such animal as a harmless group of organized Negroes. What if they want to start a farm? If they're organized, how big is that farm going to be? I mean, how big is it going to be? What are they going to be growing? Are they going to keep competing against us? Because you see, we had to teach other folk here how to farm. They already knew how to do it. So what is this farm going to be for? How big is it going to be? What you going to do with it? You see just how quickly that rolls. We'll build a house. Wait. How big is it? What are you going to do with it? Who's going to live in it? How big are you going to make it? What's it going to be made out of? Where are you going to put it? We need to know everything. We want to build a school. Wait a minute now. Where are you going to be teaching? How many kids going to be there? And you're sitting there saying, what the hell is the damage we could do with a school, with a farm? And what I need you to understand is that the reason why our immortal ancestor, Brother Neely Fuller, taught us that the white supremacists attempt to control every facet of human behavior, because if he can control every facet of human behavior, you remain dominated. The goal of the great European colonial project was to create a permanent white aristocracy. If no one ever explained it to you in a very simple, compact sentence, the goal of the great European colonialist project of chattel slavery and all that, what is your goal? What are you doing all this for? Capitalism. Why are you doing this? Our goal is to create a permanent white aristocracy. That we are the ultimate end of human history. History started with you black folk, but it will end with us, and it will end with us as the gods of this species. And therefore, once we have achieved the dominant position, we are going to maintain it by crushing everything else. It will be crushed and trampled beneath our feet. And this is the way it will be for eternity. We will be a permanent white overclass forever. And if no one has ever explained to you all what the ultimate goal is, now you see it. And when you take a look at the Charlie Kirks, the Tucker Carlsons, the Nick Fuentes's, the Donald Trumps, the Bill Clintons, the Barack Obamas, the Elon Musks, it all makes sense to you now through that lens. What is the real goal? Permanent dominance. That from now till the end of time, we will be up here and all of you will be down there. And that's just the way it will be. Forever. You can have hopes and dreams and ambitions, but we will control every inch of it. We will determine not only what you can have, but if you'll ever have it. And even the things that you think you've gotten, those are the things we have allowed. You can never be, we see if you all get organized, now you can start forcing issues, things that we didn't allow you to have. Well, now we're no longer in absolute control. If we're no longer in absolute control, then there's no way we could still be dominant. The plan's falling apart. Now you understand. Now you understand why they have been on a permanent, constant crusade to control what we think, how we think, to control the conversations, that you're not allowed to have an independent conversation that they don't get to oversee and control. You're not allowed to do that. That they will approve who it is who is allowed to speak and who is allowed to be heard. Because you need to have the illusion that you've got control of your conversation, but then they're going to install the bootlicks and the buck dancers and the boule and all the ass kissers. They're going to put them over there and say, well, this is your voice. You see, that's what we suffered under. During the 1980s and the 1990s, that's what we suffered under. An old, duplicitous, treasonous black media that while we were out here in the trenches, all them bootlicking niggas was sitting up there making their way to the White House to get their marching orders, to be told what they better not say, and then to come back to us and sell us on it. And that's how they perpetuated that. So, as you all know, on a previous broadcast on Dr. King Day, I had read the letter from Birmingham jail. There's a reason why they don't like to read the letter from Birmingham jail, people. They don't like to read that. They don't like to read the letter from Birmingham jail because they'll start with the first sentence. It's real weird. I mean, it's real weird what they do with the letter from Birmingham jail. When they talk about the letter from Birmingham jail, they really just sit up here and only mention the first sentence of it. It's just real strange, isn't it? Isn't that real strange? Now, why in the world would you do that? Why would you do that when, if you read it like I did, you realize that, by the way, there was a whole lot more to it. There was a whole lot more to it. Let me go ahead and remind you all right quick. The letter from Birmingham jail. Throw this up on your screens here right quick. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It starts off with, while confined here in the Birmingham City Jail, I came across your recent statement calling our present activities unwise and untimely. Seldom, if ever, do I pause to answer criticism of my work and ideas. If I sought to answer all the criticisms that cross my desk, my secretaries, plural, would be engaged in little else in the course of the day, and I would have no time for constructive work. But since I feel that you are men of genuine goodwill and your criticisms are sincerely set forth, I would like to answer your statement in what I hope will be patient and reasonable terms. And then you go on beyond that. And he had a lot to say in here. Particularly about the church. And that was a whole different thing. See, they don't like to read down here. They don't like to go down into it so you can see what else he had to say. The nations of Asia and Africa are moving with jet-like speed toward the goal of political independence, and we still creep at horse and buggy pace toward the gaining of a cup of coffee at a lunch counter. I guess it's easy for those who have never felt the stinging darts of segregation to say, wait. What did George tell Lionel? I mean, I know things ain't moving as fast as you wish it would there. I mean, I know that's the case there, Lionel. Things don't move as fast as you wish it would, but, you just got to be patient there, Lionels. You just got to be patient. Nobody else gets told that. But when you've seen vicious mobs lynch your mothers and fathers at will and drown your sisters and brothers at a whim, when you've seen hate-filled policemen curse, kick, brutalize, and even kill your black brothers and sisters with impunity, a phrase we continue to use to this day, when you see the vast hate-filled police majority of your 20 million Negro brothers smothering in an airtight cage of poverty in the midst of an affluent society, when you suddenly find your tongue twisted and your speech stammering as you seek to explain to your 6-year-old daughter why she cannot go to the public amusement park that has just been advertised on television, and see tears streaming up in her little eyes when she's told that Funtown is closed to colored children. By the way, remember, when they talk about black folk not being able to swim, well, that's because if you don't live in a coastal community, remember they chased you from that. Well, if the swimming pools kept black folk out, well, no wonder you had generations raised in concrete jungles who could not learn how to do that. That's a social construct. That was a man-made social construct. You see the depressing clouds of inferiority begin to form in her little mental sky, and see her begin to distort her little personality by unconsciously developing a bitterness toward white people when you have to concoct an answer for a 5-year-old son asking in agonizing pathos, "Daddy, why do white people treat colored people so mean?" When you take a cross-country drive and find it necessary to sleep night after night in the uncomfortable corners of your automobile because no motel will accept you, when you are humiliated day in and day out by nagging signs reading white and colored, when your first name becomes nigger and your middle name becomes boy. Why is it when they talk about the letter from Birmingham jail, they don't ever take you all down into this? Why is it they never go down to this part? And by the way, why is it they don't even let us go even a little bit further here? Because when you get down here to the end of it, we can never forget. Now, this is within 20 years, by the way, after World War II. We can never forget that everything Hitler did in Germany was legal. And everything the Hungarian freedom fighters did in Hungary was illegal. It was illegal to aid and comfort a Jew in Hitler's Germany. But I am sure that if I had lived in Germany during that time, I would have aided and comforted my Jewish brothers, even though it was illegal. If I lived in a communist country today where certain principles dear to the Christian faith are suppressed, I believe I would openly advocate disobeying these anti-religious laws. I must make 2 honest confessions to you, my Christian and Jewish brothers. First, I must confess that over the last few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. Oh, well, this is quite a difference from the speech during the March on Washington. Well, this is different. I don't remember this tone in that speech. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in the stride toward freedom is not the white citizens' counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order, status quo, than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I can't agree with your methods or direct action. Does that sound familiar, people? Why, yes, I certainly, these racists over here, all these racists racism is bad. Yes, racism, what they do to you Negroes is very terrible. Racism is bad. And to this day, yeah, they'll acknowledge the existence of racism. That's always been the shell game. They'll acknowledge the existence of it. They'll acknowledge that we are right, that it is injustice. I agree with you about racism and white supremacy. But what are you going to do about it? Well, I mean, that the way you all want to handle it, we don't want to do that. And all that means is they wish to preserve the status quo. Why is it that they haven't talked about that with you? Why isn't they haven't said that? They haven't said that because they don't want you to hear that. They don't want you to hear that. And yes, he does mention Elijah Muhammad in here. They do mention Elijah Muhammad in here. And if you'll all remember, I've attempted to tell folk about that. He says the other force is one of bitterness and hatred and comes perilously close to advocating violence. It is expressed in the various black nationalist groups that are springing up over the nation. The largest and best known being Elijah Muhammad's Muslim movement. This movement is nourished by the contemporary frustration over the continued existence of racial discrimination. It is made up of people who have lost faith in America, who have absolutely repudiated Christianity, and who have concluded that the white man is an incurable devil. I have tried to stand between these two forces, saying that we need not follow the do-nothingism of the complacent or the hatred and despair of the black nationalist. There is a more excellent way of love and nonviolent protest. I'm grateful to God that through the Negro Church, the dimension of nonviolence entered our struggle. If this philosophy had not emerged, I am convinced that by now, many streets of the South would be flowing with floods of blood. And that's interesting. They didn't go very far to remind you of that. He was warning them at that time. He was warning them that the church is becoming impotent, that the church is losing its efficacy. Remember, I've reminded you about this before. I want to read these paragraphs right here. I've reminded you before. He says, there was a time when the church was very powerful. This is Dr. King talking. You thought the apex of the black church's power when he was there. He's letting you all know, by the way, the church wasn't as powerful during his time as it had been before his time. There was a time when the church was very powerful. It was during that period that the early Christians rejoiced when they were deemed worthy to suffer for what they believed. In those days, the church was not merely a thermometer that recorded the ideas and principles of popular opinion. It was the thermostat that transformed the mores of society. Whenever the early Christians entered a town, the power structure got disturbed and immediately sought to convict them for being disturbers of the peace and outside agitators. But they went on when the conviction that they were a colony of heaven and had to obey God rather than man. They were small in number, but big in commitment. They were too God intoxicated to be astronomically intimidated. They brought an end to such ancient evils as infanticide and gladiatorial contest. Things are different now. The contemporary church is so often a weak, ineffectual voice with an uncertain sound. It is so often the arch supporter of the status quo, far from being disturbed by the presence of the church. The power structure of the average community is consoled by the church's often vocal sanction of things as they are. But the judgment of God is upon the church. I want you all to listen to this next part here, because this is what Dr. King had to say, and tell me why it is they don't remind you that he said this. It is the judgment of God is upon the church as never before. If the church of today does not recapture the sacrificial spirit of the early church, it will lose its authentic ring, forfeit the loyalty of millions, and be dismissed as an irrelevant social club with no meaning for the 20th century. I meet young people every day whose disappointment with the church has risen to outright disgust. I'll remind you all that when they talk about the letter from Birmingham jail, they don't read to you all any of this. But if you read the whole thing, did you know that that's what he says right there in the middle of it? That's not Jason Black talking. That's not Jason Black talking. That's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. talking. Telling you exactly what I said decades later, which tells you that he and I saw the exact same thing. And we had the exact same objective analysis and response. Why are they not telling you about this? Why is it they don't remind you that Dr. King warned decades ago that the church was in imminent peril of being dismissed as an irrelevant social club? You know, where the little old folks come pull up in their Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham, or if you was really late to the party, you had your BMW or your Mercedes. You had your BMW or your Mercedes, and oh, that's what you're pulling. It becomes a show. They get their big white hats, and oh, your grandmamas all had their white gloves, and oh man, it was like a political contest to become a deacon or a deaconess. They wanted to stand at the doors to open the doors of the church. Oh, and that became a contest, didn't it? How many of y'all grew up remembering that? That became a contest at the churches. To become a deacon or a deaconess. Oh, to become a bishop. Oh, that became a contest. You want to talk about your athletes. Oh, them little old folks at the church, they couldn't barely get their knees to work getting out the car, but they would come rolling up in some great, big, huge, shiny thing. And that was what the church became. They don't wonder why we're not there anymore. Let me be very, very clear about that. They don't wonder about that. They know about that. That's why they did that right there. They did that for a reason, and that's how you ended up growing up with that. You ended up growing up with that because Dr. King told them that that was going to be an issue. That was going to be an issue. I need to remind you all about exactly why it is that these people did some of the stuff that they did. And by that, I'm referring to the civil rights generation when I talk about that. It's not accidental, some of the stuff you saw. It's not accidental. It's not accidental because what you need to know is that they were looking for something. There's a reason why that happened. Do you all know that they were locked out? Did you know that they were locked out? Did you all know that it was Cadillac's policy not to sell cars to black folk during Jim Crow? What? Did you all know that? Okay. Yeah, did you all know that that was Cadillac's policy? Don't believe me. I'm going to let you all go do that. That's y'all's homework. That's y'all's homework tonight. For anybody who wants to try to argue with me over that, that's y'all's homework on MLK Day. Don't believe me. Go and Google this for yourself. Don't expect Rachel Maddow or anybody else to remind you of the, when we say systemic racism, we mean systemic. They were born and they grew up and they were told, oh, you can't buy a Cadillac. No, we don't sell the niggas. No, you can't get on the fire truck. You can't be a fireman and you can't drive a Cadillac. Don't believe me. You go Google it for yourselves. And then come back and try to tell me I'm wrong. So you got to understand, for them old Negroes, they spent literally decades on the outside looking in. They fell victim to the psyop and they spent forever. Their lives became consumed with gaining acceptance. And so you see, when they got told that the price of acceptance was to suffer outright brutality and barbarism, their reflexive Pavlovian response was just, well, keep your head down. And then you see in this episode here, and Lionel goes from being standing up to literally having his head down. And them old folks, they spent their lives dedicated to one task, that I have arrived. I have arrived. I have arrived. It became the culture. I have arrived, right up until the Jeffersons. What was their theme song? We moving on up to a deluxe apartment in the sky. Doesn't that sound like heaven in the hereafter? That became that song. It was literally a hymn that began their program, telling you that we moving on up to the east side. We're moving on up to the east side, which, by the way, just a slight reminder here, in New York, going from Harlem to the east side is actually moving down. What? Damn! By the way, I know I'm kind of nitpicking. Here, but Harlem's about as far north as you can get in Manhattan without, being in Washington Heights or without being in the Bronx. So if you all go take a look at Manhattan on the map, actually Harlem's about as far north as you can get without being in the Bronx. So to get to the east side, you actually have to go down, but I digress. Never mind, they wrote their song, so I wouldn't want to mess up their lyrics, but just letting you know, you're actually moving on down to the east side. All right. In any case. So I want y'all to understand that. Yes, I know. I don't want to just list off everything. Washington Heights, Inwood. Harlem, Washington Heights, Inwood. Yes, folks. I know. Y'all know I know that. So you want to just name off everything? In any case, I want you to see what they did here. Yes, programming you. That became full time. Remember, programming requires repetition. Programming requires repetition. So you see, these sitcoms and television were made to order. You come back every week and they're beating the message home to you here. But their goal was also stamp out all revolutionary energy. There's no need for that. Just let us murder you with impunity. Now, they didn't teach their people that, but they made sure just as soon as Dr. King was killed, because remember, folks, that's not all of it. That's not all of it. Need you to understand that. Remember, it kept going after that. It kept going after that. These folks knew what they were doing. You didn't hear about this artificial cartoon construct of Dr. King by accident. That was the government cleaning up behind itself to make sure that hopefully we can tie this into a nice, neat little bow. We will flood the schools with it. We will make it a national holiday because you cannot allow these Negroes to sit here and decide how they're going to commemorate it and handle it. You can't allow them to decide it. You've got to take control, and you've got to take the reins of pushing the message of how they're going to respond to this. And every time they think about Dr. King, they are not to think about their ancestral culture of resistance. You tell them that it's about we shall overcome someday, heaven in the hereafter, pie in the sky. And just hope that the white supremacists will find their humanity. And that's the best you can do. Well, you see, you got to understand that there's a reason why the lily-livered, spineless, noodle-neck white supremacists got so damn mad 5 years ago when we took to the streets after the murder of George Floyd. After we took to the streets, after the murder of George Floyd, after we took to the streets, they were very, very angry because that was their confirmation that the programming failed. They're mad as hell and indignant because that was their proof that their great, grand, decades-long mission of rewriting our history so that they could control our response to injustice, they woke up a few decades later to find out, damn it! It's failed. It didn't work. You can't say that those were the old fossils of the civil rights generation in the streets. This was the current generation in the streets, and they were organized. Despite all of your efforts from broadcast television, broadcast communications, government interference, school suppression, and every side op you can imagine, COINTELPRO's program still running, and yet it still failed. And that was their undeniable proof that it failed. They're not just indignant, they're panicking. What do you do now? The message we tried to stamp the message out and it got passed on anyway. Now what? Now what? It is even more apparent today. I need y'all to understand something. We are more strident today than the Negroes were in Dr. King's time. What? We are more strident and we are more serious today and more vigilant today than the Negroes were in Dr. King's time. We are talking about it more. It is more at the forefront. It is more on the front burner. It is more in the national consciousness than it was during his time. This wasn't the program. This wasn't the plan. We were supposed to all be sitting out here talking about tennis shoes and baseball caps. And for some of y'all, they had you thinking that's what we were focused on. And there were some who were, but by the way, they would not be responding as virulently as they are if that were true, because then everything would be going to plan. They'd just be sitting back in the shade sipping lemonade. But they're not. They're panicking. They're telling you they're losing everything. Now, why is that? They're telling you that because they saw that, by the way, remember, the goal is dominance. And the best dominance is when the people you are dominating go with the program. You see, putting people in chains is expensive. It's expensive monetarily. It's expensive from a labor standpoint. Having to physically suppress people, you got to use resources, human resources, mental resources, time resources. No, the best prison is a prison where the inmates accept their servitude. That is the optimal prison. That is the optimal plantation. A plantation where the slaves do their work and they see themselves as workers and not slaves, so that you don't have to expend any unnecessary energy keeping them physically subdued. And that is why every mechanism of the society has been organized and reorganized to get you to accept the programming. So George Jefferson becomes a small business owner. He's got his dry cleaning business there and whatnot. And yet, do you all know what was missing from the Jeffersons, by the way? Maybe someone should ask Norman Lear about this. Do you all know what was missing from the Jeffersons? You've never heard this before tonight. You've never thought about this before tonight. No one's ever suggested this to you before tonight, so don't even lie. But in case you all didn't notice, was there ever any discussion about what George was going to pass down to his son? Damn! By the way, George Jefferson has built this business. George Jefferson built this business, but by the way, did they ever discuss what he was going to pass down to his son? Did they ever talk about that? Yeah, no one ever discussed that. He had what, 7 stores? And do you all realize that what kind of father-son relationship did he have with Lionel? By the way, folks, I mean, think about that there. George went to work. He talked about his father. I'm going to be a business owner. Okay. Did he ever, all these other television programs, that's what they talked about. What was George's father-son relationship with his son? And what about the business? What is he passing on? Why is it that the show never addressed that? People, remember, The Jeffersons was a spin-off of another television show. So shouldn't Lionel be very prominent so we can do this next spin-off? And yet, that wasn't what they did. No, I don't think Lionel ever worked at the cleaners. Hell, I don't think Wheezy worked there. I think it was just George. It was just George. So George's life's work, the generational wealth he was building, was off, segregated in its own little corner, but it wasn't really a part of the family's life. It wasn't really a part of the family's life. Do y'all think that was just an oversight? I'm just wondering here, folks, was that just an oversight? That in the middle of all this here, by the way, what's the future plans for George's ambitions here? Because remember, he was always talking about, was his name Whittingdale? The white man who owned like 200 dry cleaners. George owned 7. And was it Whittingdale or Whittington? Always wanted to buy George out, remember? The white man who owned 200 dry cleaners and was always offering or trying to pressure George to buy him out. Yeah, you notice what their mindset was, and it's like, okay, so that's going on, and yet no discussion about what you're going to do? No discussion about that? you think that's accidental? Do you really think that? I mean, they were talking about white men on the show making acquisitions. On the show, the white men were making acquisitions. Remember Mr. Bentley? Yeah, the white men were making acquisitions. George was just kind of a smart ass who lived in the building, but what about acquisitions for him? I mean, he could talk about all these white men doing that, but he has no desire of his own? None? What is it that they were trying to program you for? What is it? James Evans, Cliff Huxtable. Oh, I said it. What exactly is it that they're trying to program you for? That you're kind of just happy with where your life is. You're just kind of happy with where your life is at, but these white folk around you, I mean, oh, they tycooning. Did you think it was just harmless? Do you think that they added those attributes to the white people in the show and they were just strangely absent from the black folk who allegedly are starring in the show and that's it? I need you all to recognize things like that. This idea that you're okay where you are at and everyone colludes together to convince you that you need to just be happy where you are. Wherever you're at, you just need to be comfortable there. Three words that the European colonial project of domination has tried to drill through your head. Stop wanting more. Stop it. Shut up. Be content. Be happy. Wear your shoes. Put on your tennis shoes and put on your earbuds. Stop making waves. Stop trying to challenge for that top spot. Stop trying to own and control things. We got that covered. Stop wanting more. If you're at the bottom, can't you just get yourself a pillow and get comfortable down there? Because they understand that if you are not satisfied where you are at, it is only a matter of time when you're going to ask the most dangerous question of all. Where exactly should I be? I'm not happy or content down here. I'm not comfortable down here. I don't feel like this is where I belong. So where exactly should I be? Because I know I shouldn't be down here. Now they get scared. Now they get afraid. Because you started to ask a question that introduces horrible new frightening specters into the room. You see, now that you're asking that question about do I belong down here, you're going to start asking more uncomfortable questions like, by the way, how did that guy get up there again? What are the real rules for getting up there? Because, yeah, what you're telling me, I have a sneaking suspicion that's not correct. So what are the real rules? Well, let me check and see how you got where you're at. Well, I'll be damned. Oh, hey, you didn't get where you are by doing any of the stuff you telling me to do. Well, yes, I understand that, but you want to be a better person than me. No. I'm good. I like that equality. I'm looking for equality right now. Yeah. I'm cool being the same. I'm cool with that. They're on guard looking out for when you start using troublesome phrases, troublesome words, when you start talking about power as not something you're begging to get a little crumb from, but something you are demanding to possess. Now we got problems. When you start talking about your language and you take control of your language, when they see you all starting to speak with phrases that they didn't give you, things that they didn't say to you and they didn't give you, and they catch on amongst you. Now we got a problem. Now we have a problem when we discuss power, wealth, and influence, when we discuss cut the check, when we discuss reparations across the board. Well, this is terrifying. Then when you go digging back further through the crates and we say, by the way, where's the Freedmen's Bank? Because that's money you owe. When you go beyond just Greenwood, Archer, and Pine, and you say that there's an entire nation of bombings and brutality that directly targeted and destroyed our wealth, don't you understand? You found the root of the problem. Can they afford to give you any portion of that? They can go ahead and give you their cast-off old schools, their cast-off old houses, white flight. They can do that, but can they flee from the money? As Malcolm X said, the way that they fled from their old schools and their old houses. Now that you've been doing that, do you all understand that when you demanded desegregation, you were able to get that within a couple of decades? We've been beating the drum about the root of the economy, and they haven't moved on that the whole time. It's been way longer. They are standing their ground on that, which tells you found the root of the problem. And if you get your hands on this, you will not have to worry about being subservient to them ever again. Do you understand why now they're hitting the panic button? Do you understand why now they're hitting the panic button? I need you all to know something here tonight, that there's a lot that you don't understand, that this is at the forefront of their thoughts. This is at the forefront of their thoughts globally. Elon Musk, even today, was tweeting about how we need to we need to repopulate. Elon Musk is not interested in black folk having children. He is obsessed and fixated on white birth rates, to the point and the extent that he has become the biggest white pookie in America.
Damn!
He's got baby mamas all over the damn place. Then women are turning his kids transsexual. All he can do is sit up here and wage drama on Twitter, to the point that, Elon, did you figure out why in the hell do you want to make all these children by all these women if you're not going to be a father in the home? He's single-handedly obsessed with recreating children. And yet his family and bloodline has gone to hell and ashes in his mouth. When you become obsessed with the enemy, you become the enemy. But he's not the only one, folks. He's not the only one. The founder of Telegram, what's his name? Pavel Durov, the founder of that app Telegram. They think he's got like 100 children now. So he's made all that money, and what has he done? Why, he's become a sperm donor, and he's got 100 kids out there, they figure, with more on the way. As a matter of fact, he's offered to actually cover the costs. The founder of that Telegram app, by the way, he's got 100 kids, and he's offering to cover the costs, the in vitro fertilization expenses for the women. for women under 37 years old. For those of you who did not know, that's what these men are doing with their vast mountains of wealth. This is what they are obsessed and fixated on. They got all this money and they're off. We need to crank out as many kids as we can. Do you see that they are very paranoid and very insecure about that? How can you be a father to 100 children? You cannot. What you can do is flood the zone and hope for the best. Folks, do you really think that he intends for those to be 100 heirs? Do you really think that his plan is to create 1 over 100 heirs to his fortune? Or is his plan for the females that you will all give birth to the new nation? Who cares if the kids ain't taken care of? Don't worry about that. Yeah, what quality of nation are you propagating here, sir? Folks, they are so paranoid and so single-minded, they're not thinking about that. They don't have the mental bandwidth to think about that. That's not even an afterthought. Do you understand that? They're just like, man, we're focused on getting the numbers out there. Let the chips fall where they're made. This is all we can do. This is all we can do. They are mobilizing every piece of machinery they possibly can. They're talking about AI, and in reality, what they have for AI is not really going to give them the results that they're looking for, but they're going to keep trying. You sit up here with all this transhumanism and all this nonsense here and whatnot, and what it really tells you is what their anxieties are. It really just gives you a peep into what their anxieties are and how seriously anxious they are about it. Why? What they're showing you is that they are terrified that the great European colonial project is falling apart in front of their eyes. That's what they're showing you. This paranoia about making as many kids as they can. What they're telling you is that the great European colonial project is disintegrating in their hands right in front of them. Today, not 100 years from now. Today. Today. And even the richest of them, even the richest amongst them now, that's what they're looking at. They're looking at that. They're looking at that. They have control of the wealth and not a whole lot else, although that's a lot to have. How do we lock it in? You were so busy robbing and stealing and pillaging that you lost your humanity in the process. Now what you're seeing are desperate dregs to hold on to it by any means. There isn't even an intelligent effort being made. It's just, man, look here, crank out the kids and we'll worry about making them cohesive later. Just go ahead and whack out as many white babies as you can now. We'll worry about making them cohesive and organized later. First, get them kids out here. Just see if you can do that first. Let's just get that part done. They're sitting up here selling you on the idea that they're going to go to Mars. They're not going to Mars. Everything is one big, great, big, huge trick bag. One big, great, big, huge con job. People, Elon Musk knows damn well the dollar's not going anywhere. No, I'm not off subject tonight. Y'all need to cut our check because right now you're trying to bamboozle the world into thinking that you've got some great, big, huge transcendent plan, and that's not what it is, people. Let me ask you all a question, just in case anybody questions whether or not I'm correct about this. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you one question to shut down that universal basic income or AI replacing jobs thing. Folks, If you really think that Elon Musk truly desires the end of money, then will you please answer for me, why is he so desperately obsessed with becoming and remaining the richest man in the world if he's more interested in a world without money? If Elon Musk is truly committed to the concept of a world without money, why is he spending every waking moment of his life desperately trying to cling on to being the richest man in the world? If that's what he truly believes, you think he's going to give you, even if he could make those robots work, which he can't, but even if he could, do you think the goal is to give them to you free? Do you really think that Elon Musk's real goal in life is to have you on economic parity with him? That he's going to go from the richest man in the world to money being irrelevant? He's going to go from buying a new super yacht every 24 months. All of a sudden, he's going to just give all that up and become a Buddhist monk? If that's really his goal, why isn't he doing it now? He's trying to stockpile $1 trillion now. That's not a man who's forfeited the capitalist system. That's a man who's all in. But he's telling you that his latest scam, you need to go along with it because it will be your salvation. Why, once I've given the world, once the world gives me control of AI, I won't use it to turn you all into wage slaves. No. As a matter of fact, this will make it where work becomes obsolete. But Elon, if work becomes obsolete and money becomes obsolete, then profits become obsolete too, don't they? Folks, if money's going to be obsolete, then by definition, won't profits become obsolete too? Do you truly think that Elon Musk desires profits to become obsolete? You think he did all this because he desires a world where profits are obsolete? You really think that? While he's desperately scraping and clawing every day to increase his profits by metric tons. But you think he wants something else. Wake up and recognize what you're being sold. No, folks, Elon Musk is never going to give you a free car. He's never going to give you a free robot. You're never going to have free AI. Hell, he just changed the rules for the company that the full self-driving feature is now a subscription, so you'll never be able to own that. Elon Musk isn't here for what he gonna give you. He's here for what you gonna give him. And what he wants is dominance. Maybe they're getting a little wacky at all the avenues they're exploring, but they're exploring everything for the purposes of giving them control. Oh, give me another contract for this AI robot. Yeah, I know it doesn't work, but let me hype this up and go ahead and steal all the money I can on the front end. Let me do that. Does that make sense to you all when I say it like that? Does that sound like that's actually a more accurate description of what's going on than some of you? Yeah, does the explanation I just gave you fit a little bit better than that con job they're trying to sell you? Does that sound more like it than, why would the richest man in the world want to get rid of profits? Does that even make sense to you? The richest man in the world wants to get rid of profits? because he's so worried about all the people at the bottom of the ladder. He's so worried about them that he wants to get rid of profits. But okay, if he wants to get rid of profits, why is he buying a new penthouse for every slut that he gets pregnant? Why has he got all these super yachts and all these houses and all these cars? And I mean, for a guy who doesn't care about money, he sure does buy a lot of stuff. No, he's just selling you on it. He's just selling you on it. Do you realize that when you buy into that, the first thing you're going to do is say, well, hell, I ain't worried about it. They start tapping into your failure gene. They start tapping into that failure gene. Well, the money don't really matter. Elon going to get, y'all, the saviorism endures. Elon going to get rid of money. I ain't got to worry about making no money. Elon Musk going to get rid of that. Elon Musk and Sam Altman, they going to make AI. And with AI going to do all the work. So ain't no reason for me, baby, you need to get off my ass about telling me I need to get out here and get up and get out and get something. You stop telling me I got to get up and get out here and get something. Don't you understand? The money going away, baby. You worrying about that old money stuff right there. Don't you see what Elon done told you? Don't you see what Massa Musk done said? What? That's the problem with you hoes. You don't listen to Massa Musk. Massa Musk, you need to listen to him. And don't you know he doing big things? He gonna get rid of all this money. You see, he's at the White House, baby. Don't you see that? So you need to stop bothering me about this right here. So you focus on the wrong damn thing. See, you and me, we really need to be focused on Star Trek. We need to be watching lots of Star Trek because we need to be ready for a world without money. So you worry about the wrong things. I'm locked in. I'm locked in, baby. I'm grounded. You sitting up here worrying about this old system. I'm looking forward. See, I'm going to be ready when the money go away and get devalued and it go obsolete. Massa Musk going to do that. So I ain't worried about this money thing. Yeah. That part. And there are some folks who are either stupid enough or naive enough or deceptive enough to fool themselves into thinking that that's a real thing. And they will never come back and admit that they were wrong or just stupid. So just remember, the lazy are always going to make up an excuse for that. And no, he's not going to Mars. Damn! What? No, they're not going to Mars, people. They're not going. It's not happening. That's a sales pitch. They give you these blue sky things and these wild blue sky pitches and, oh, give me all the money you got. He promises to go to Mars. What he's going to do is put more satellites in space. That's what they're going to do. People, human beings can't survive on Mars. Humanity can't survive on Mars. Hell, humanity can't survive on the moon. Don't believe me? Look it up for yourselves. No, I'm not off subject tonight. I'm still talking about Dr. King. I'm not off subject. By the way, folks, go and check out what happens to astronauts on the space station. Their bones get weaker. They literally get physically shorter. Their hearts literally get less efficient. Go look it up for yourselves. The astronauts, when they go to the space station and whatnot, their bones get thinner, their muscles get weaker, their blood volume gets screwed up. They literally get physically shorter. Their hearts literally become less efficient. And going to the moon isn't any better. So if you go visit those places for a day, the effects are very nominal. If you expect to live there, it's a whole different environment. We're going to put a colony on the moon. A colony of what? A colony of robots. You can't even get a colony of them working here. But give him a couple of $1 trillion. Folks, don't y'all know when somebody is running a scam? Don't you know when somebody is running a heist? This is like one of those heist movies. They got you all worried about what's going over here on the left, and meanwhile, he's over there on the right moving all the money and the gold bricks out the bank. You're at the front of the bank thinking you're negotiating with the terrorists, and meanwhile, the terrorists are moving all the money and the gold bars out the back of the bank. And you still sitting up here arguing with the fella he left up front. I want you to release my terrorist friends, and I want y'all to bring me $1 billion. And meanwhile, they then put all the damn money into a moving van and off they're driving off with it here while you still talking to somebody at the front of the bank. Doesn't that sound a little more logical now? This is a heist film. This is Oceans 11 and 12 and 13 put together. They're handing you a pitch. They're telling you it's about going to space. No, it's not. It's about getting unlimited investment on the front end. And they'll make rockets capable of going into orbit and going to the moon and going to Mars. But now they ain't going to do that part of it. No, give me these rockets so I can put satellites in space for Starlink. Now that can work. Now that I've deceived you and bamboozled you, because if I told you that I wanted that money just to put satellites in space, you'd be like, we already can put satellites in space. Yeah, but these would be satellites I privately own. Yeah, if he had said that from the beginning, you wouldn't give him the funding for it. He tells you, oh, I want America to go to the moon again. As a matter of fact, forget the moon. I want America to go to Mars. I want America to go to Mars. And the only thing you ever see there is, by the way, we couldn't help but notice the only thing you're doing is putting more satellites in space. We couldn't help but notice that. The reason that they do not want us to have proper funding, people, is one very simple reason. They don't want us to have the ability to even communicate with each other. Take a look at what we have done communicating with each other on a shoestring budget. If we actually had real resources, do you realize how large the message would be? How on code the message would be? Do you realize that? Do you realize how huge that message would be? There was a reason why they wanted to control everything we heard and everything we saw for decades. You talked about George Jefferson and his dry cleaning stores, never said a word about how he acquired them. They don't talk to you about business and finance. They talk to themselves and their children about that. But when they put out TV shows and media for you, you can be hustlers, you can be gun runners, you can be drug dealers. You can't be legitimate business people. Let me go further than that with y'all here, folks. Let me let you know exactly what's going on. Let me go further than that with you here. Just in case you ever thought that you were ever actually getting the game, let me go a little bit further. Folks, do you realize how many television shows that you all tune into and you can talk to right now and speak to me about right now that have gone in depth about economics and finance? Anybody seen the Ozarks? Damn! Anybody seen the television show Billions? Damn! Anybody seen the television show Suits? Damn! Need I keep going? Anybody seen the movie The Social Network? Anybody seen Donald Trump's The Apprentice? You want me to keep going? Take a look at how long this list is getting. White men with wealth tycooning, making business deals, explaining finance and international banking and startups. Take a look at all the shows I just named. And you know I'm stopping early. That's not really all of them right there. That's not all of them. No, those are just the ones I can think off the top of my head from a guy who doesn't watch television. I don't even watch television. We'll be sitting here naming shows and stuff all damn night where they go in depth about how they do their deal. What's that TV? Succession. I beat you to it, Kip DR. I beat you to it. Succession. Yeah, we can go down the list about these television shows that go into all kinds of detail about entrepreneurship and finance and banking and trading and raising capital and mergers and acquisitions and takeovers. And then we turn on your TV programming. Why, there's some drug-addicted rapper over there shaking his or her butt cheeks.
Nigga, please.
Yeah, there's a drug-addicted rapper over there shaking either her or his butt cheeks. And depends on what week you catch them. Yeah, folks, what's that, Yellowstone? All those TV shows made by that guy Sheridan? Yeah, all those TV shows made by that guy Sheridan, they do the same damn thing. But what about when they come talk to you? Those shows, your shows are not built on these concepts of finance and stuff like that. So they turn finance into entertainment for them. They turn financing into entertainment for them. But for you, it's all about street culture and gangster culture. And, you know, if you can't sell some dope, you ain't made no money. There's nothing sophisticated about it. And hell, they don't even explain the dope selling part of it in any real useful detail either, by the way. They don't even go into detail about that. So isn't that interesting? Take a look at what they talk to you about. More importantly, what they don't talk to you about. Yeah, they leave all that off the table altogether. But if you watch these other shows, they go into detail about some of those things. Now, yes, I will concede that a good deal of some of that stuff is fictional, doesn't work in the real world. Some of it works in theory, but the whole point is, what I'm making is, by the way, do you see the conversation over there is different? My point is the conversation over there and the programming over there is different. They're not talking about the same things. And that's why they don't want us communicating, because even if we don't have a TV show, when you all gather over here in a place like this is a different conversation. Man, folks get worried when you start talking like this. This is a different conversation. This is not what they're usually talking about. This is different. They're sitting up here talking about getting organized. Somebody said the TV show Weeds. Yeah, you want to talk about white female entrepreneurship? Weeds is totally different from Power now, isn't it? I've never seen the TV show Weeds. I've never seen that. I know it's about a white woman who sells marijuana. I'm just wondering, how many shootings did they have, by the way? I'm just curious, how many shootouts did they have on Weeds? I never saw the show, so I can't tell you. I don't know. I'm just curious. How many shootouts did they have? How many folk getting shot? How many character deaths over a pound of weed? I'm just curious. How many shootouts did they have? Because I know how many they have on the black shows. So I'm just asking, how many shootouts did they have on Weeds? By the way, one more thing. If we're going to go there, we got to go to Breaking Bad. What? Damn! We got to go to Breaking Bad. No. Don't misunderstand Breaking Bad now. Don't misunderstand it. Walter White was a chemist. Walter White was a chemist. That was the whole point right there. And they took you step by step. Yeah, that was like a manual for better living through chemistry. And please understand, Breaking Bad is based on a true story.
Nigga, what?
Nigga, what?
Nigga, what?
Oh, do I gotta remind y'all about that? Oh, yeah. Breaking Bad is based on a true story. Well, Jason, what true story is that? I'll tell you what the true story is. I've been telling you all for decades about a book called The Botany of Addiction. I have spent 2 decades telling you all about a book called The Botany of Addiction. And in the book, The Botany of Addiction, it talked about how the drugs you have today, and this book is years and years old, but the drugs you have today are very different from the drugs of the opium wars or from a century ago. How did we get there? Because you were under the impression that the drugs that you have were just grown by people in a backyard somewhere, and that's not where it is today. By the time we get to the 40s and 50s and 60s, you have PhD chemists and botanists who were taking the drugs, taking the marijuana plants and going to work to splice them together and splice them together so that it would bring out and accentuate the THC content. The botanists, these are people with credentials and degrees, and they got to work modifying the marijuana plant. The marijuana plant you have today is basically a whole different species of the one that existed a century ago, because people with masters and PhDs went to work and used their knowledge of chemistry and botany and science. Yeah, they didn't just use it to make different types of roses. They also got together and said, you know what? We can make a more potent form of marijuana, a more potent form of cocaine. We can make a more potent form of opium/heroin. And now you have a plant that is literally, these are not my words, this is the science. It is literally 50 to 100 times more potent than the drug that they were smoking or snorting a century ago. It is orders of magnitude beyond that. From a lot of square dudes, they were chemistry professors, chemistry teachers, botanists. Yeah, they had a degree and they found a new way to use it. Some of them were drug users, but a lot of them weren't. Folks, you do know that they still work for the cartels to this day. What? Folks, by the way, I'm leaving something out. People, the cartels in Colombia, they don't just have chemists and scientists working for them today. They've got German engineers.
Nigga, what?
Remember? They running submarines down there right now. Remember? Yeah, them cartels have unlimited money. They have German engineers. Who do you think has built their submarines? You can't just get the local car mechanic to engineer a submarine. No, they pay German engineers to engineer their submarines for them. They got engineers on the payroll. Don't believe me. Jason could be lying for views or content or clicks. Why don't you Google it and prove me wrong? Why don't you Google it and investigate it and see if I'm wrong? Of course, there's some of you who actually already know this. There are some of you who actually already know this. So you're like, well, Jason's just showing out because, yeah, they don't talk about this on the news very often. But by the way, the cartels employ scientists. They employ chemists. They employ engineers. I mean, when you talk about them being a corporation unto themselves, yeah, they got complete with an R&D budget. I mean, radar jamming technology, the whole 9 yards. But for the submarine thing, y'all, when they build those tunnels, remember when they built that tunnel that went from Mexico up into California was a couple of miles long? Remember, it had its own track, its own electricity and lighting, its own ventilation system. El Chapo, when they busted him out of prison, remember? They had to use GPS. I mean, they had to be very, very precise. They were so precise, they knew where he was in the prison. They used GPS to down to the foot of where he was in the prison. And when he dropped down where the commode was, he's in the damn cart and he's gone. There's a track, there's electricity, there's a cart. He didn't even have to walk. And, oh yeah, by the way, when you go underground like that, it gets hot. So they have to have, it gets hot and also oxygen tends to be an issue. So it has to have a ventilation system. Any of you who live in a city or the part of the country that has a tunnel, like the Holland Tunnel or the Chesapeake Bay Tunnel, they have ventilation systems. Yeah, to get the carbon monoxide out, but also to get oxygen in, because tunnels going underground, you start losing more oxygen. So these are not little things. You can't just get any old body to do this. You have to have an engineer. You have to have a geologist. You have to know what you're dealing with, what you're digging through, to have the right stuff. You don't want to cave in. You have to have engineers and geologists to make that work. So for those of you who the extent of your knowledge of how the Mexican cartels and the Colombian cartels work, if the extent of your knowledge or what you assume was, well, they got some dudes, making some crack rocks in a back alley somewhere. Okay, they got some farmers who might grow the crops and then that's it. No. They've got full-fledged chemists. How do you think they got the fentanyl thing popping? How do you think back in the day they had the Quaaludes thing popping? They've been had chemists and scientists. I mean, real scientists. I guess you would consider real scientists to be white scientists. Well, they had them too and still got them. You know why? Because they can outbid anybody he might work for. You are out of work engineer in Germany? Look here, Volkswagen will pay you $100,000 a year. Pablo and them will pay you $10 million. Hey, you engineered this submarine for us here. Here's $10 million. You just tell us what we got to do. They can outbid anybody he works for. Easily. So when I tell you all that Breaking Bad is based on a true story, oh, yeah, that's how the cartels got it. People who went to school and learned chemistry and botany and engineering. Now they work for the plug. Please explain to me why your old dead black media does not have this conversation with you. Please explain that to me, so when folks tell you about how you need to play by the rules, why is it they don't explain this to you? Why is it they never had this conversation with you? You got whole television shows that you're watching, but in reality, it's not going into that kind of detail. Let me be clear. There's a whole world of difference between what you see on Narcos versus what you see on what 50 Cent puts out. Whole world of difference. You see on these shows they make for white folk, they teach you things. When you watch Breaking Bad, they basically teach you how to be a drug kingpin. Shout out Gus Fring. They basically give you a step-by-step manual to be a drug kingpin. I mean, they basically do that. Go watch your shows and it's a bunch of unrealistic garbage. You try that, straight to jail. So trust and believe. They don't want us even having conversations like this. They don't even want us discussing things like this because you're going to mess around and have somebody like me show up. It'll be somebody like me who shows up, and then next thing you know, the conversation flipped. And all of a sudden, let me give y'all some details right quick. All of a sudden, the conversation flipped. That wasn't in the bingo cards. That wasn't on the menu. That wasn't what they were looking for. We weren't supposed to have a conversation flip. Y'all supposed to be sitting there talking about nigga stuff. You're not supposed to have a conversation. Well, let me explain to you how that works. Let me explain to you capital formation. Let me explain to you about borrowing that. Let me explain to you how that works and what you're really looking for. Let me explain to you about the stock scam. I shouldn't say scam, but how they structure those things to make sure that no matter how much stock there is, they keep control of it. Let me explain that to you. Let me explain to you how preferred stock works like that. Let me explain that part to you. Let me demystify the music business for you. Let me demystify that for you. Why is it they don't have these conversations with you? Why is it they don't have them with your schools? Let me explain something to you right now. There's a bunch of black women laid up under white men right now. They ain't sitting there kicking no game to you.
Auntie, chill!
The bedwenching side of the culture is for real, but by the way, baby, he ain't kicking no game to you. He's letting you sit up here and style and profile and pose, but meanwhile, he keeping the money in his pocket. And he's not hip, he ain't lacing you up on no game. He's not lacing you up on nothing. Let me explain something to y'all right now. You can't name for me a single white tycoon from the 20th century. I don't give a damn who it was. I don't care who it was. They didn't pass on the wealth to their black wife. They didn't pass on the wealth to their black wife. They went ahead and said, let me go ahead and kick that divorce right quick. Let me go ahead and do that. But by the way, you don't see a bunch of black women walking around here with their white husband's wealth, pulling a Paris Hilton or a Jackie Onassis or a Kris Kardashian. Well, okay, not Chris, but you get the idea. Did y'all notice that part? Or is this the first time that anybody's actually reminded you all and said that statement? That, by the way, how did that work out for them? Because I don't see, I see Mackenzie Bezos. I see Melinda Gates, but I don't see the black bedwenches caked off like that. I don't see them walking off with the white husband's wealth. What happened? Hey, y'all, what happened? Something went wrong. Why is it that we can't find any of them? We know they were sitting there cheesing and skinning and grinning, talking about how great it was, but I'm looking for the money. I'm looking for them dollars. Now I just couldn't help but notice. Left you on the roadside for pickup, and shouldn't you be sitting back? Sitting back living lavish. Shouldn't it be that? Am I making it up? Am I making it up? Okay. Folks in the chat room talking about George Lucas's wife. George Lucas's wife was already... She wasn't struggling like that. And oh yeah, by the way, she's just the second wife. And oh yeah, by the way, one more thing. Want to make sure I keep up with that there right quick. Oh man. Hey y'all. Think about this for just a few moments. Oh, I'm about to blow your damn minds here now. Think about this for just a few moments. I want you to think about this for a few moments. Some folks in the chat room, and you're kind of slow, baby. You need to catch up. Hey, y'all, I want to ask you two questions. We all know that George Lucas's most valuable asset was Star Wars and Lucasfilms. Let me ask you two questions. Question number one, question number one, when did George Lucas marry Melanie Hobson? And question number two, when did he sell Star Wars to Disney? Damn! I want you all to go Google that right now. We all know his biggest asset was Star Wars and Lucasfilm. Why don't you go look at those dates right quick? When did he marry Melanie Hobson? And then look at when did he sell Star Wars to Disney? Now go look at those dates right quick. Yeah, why is it nobody ever said this to him? Okay, never mind. Yeah, y'all got your favorite YouTubers. You got your favorite YouTubers, but isn't this interesting that your favorite YouTubers and your favorite biggest ass-kissing bedwenches, none of them said this part? Oh, wait a minute. He marries her right after he sells Lucasfilm and LucasArts. Okay, let me liquidate this. Let me make this my asset first, and then I'll marry you. Let me make sure that this is a pre-existing asset that I came to the marriage with. And then I'm out of the business altogether. No wonder he doesn't make any more movies, no more investments, no more nothing. Yeah, these are all assets he had before he got married. After he got married, okay, baby, I'm through competing and I'm through climbing and all this stuff. Yeah, I'm through with that. Oh, yeah, one more thing. Do you know who it is that George Lucas credits with advising him to sell Lucasfilm? Do you know who George Lucas says advised him to sell Lucasfilm? Steven Spielberg. George Lucas says that Steven Spielberg was the one who told him that he should sell Lucasfilm. Now, he's always contended that the reason for that was because George Lucas's children had not expressed any interest in running the company or anything. And he just said, well, give it to somebody who's actually going to take care of it. Well, that's what George Lucas has always said. However, now that I give you the chronology of when he married Melanie Hobson, he marries her right after he sells Lucasfilm. That means they were already together. And she's obviously significantly younger than him. So they were already together. And while they were together, Steven Spielberg advises George Lucas to sell Star Wars, and coincidentally, it's right before he marries this new woman. Right before he marries her, those two are together, and I guess he's telling Spielberg they serious about it. And then Right before he marries her, Spielberg says, "Hey, George, let me pull your coat right quick. Let me pull your coat. Yeah, dude, you might want to offload that before you do this, because she comes from high finance. She works in capital finance, so you might want to offload that. You might want to offload them assets right quick. Yeah, why don't we get them assets offloaded right quick, and then after that, you can ball on out. But yeah, because you're a little too old to be starting to get half your stuff took. You're a little too old to be giving up half. So yeah, you need to go ahead and dump that. Don't worry, I got some lawyers to help you do it. Yeah, I already talked to Disney for you. Disney will take that off your hands. But yeah, you need to go ahead and dump that. Before you walk down that aisle. I know you in love, but yeah, go ahead and drop that off. She's walking down the aisles, cheesing, and baby, you better be in it for love, because you ain't in it for generational wealth no more. So that is what it is. That is what it is. Yeah, you see, clearing up these misconceptions, they don't want us having a conversation like this, where you have somebody who ain't just sitting up saying a bunch of wild stuff that they're just making up on the fly. Y'all, all tonight, I've been telling you all over and over again, go Google it, go look it up, and don't just stop at the AI result. Don't ever stop at the AI result, because the AI result can be gamed. The AI results can be gamed. You need to go down into the search results and go get some qualified, reliable sources that you're looking at. Don't stop at the AI results. AI results can be gamed. AI results can be false. You make sure you continue getting some reliable sources. Go down into the results. Don't just stop at the AI thing at the top. Don't ever do that. So if I'm saying something wrong tonight, I'm sitting up here inviting you all and saying, go look this up so you can prove me wrong. Oh, yeah, they ain't going to prove me wrong, though. Oh, it's going to be right there. It's going to be right there. It's going to be right there. That's what it's going to be. Right there. Why is it they don't have these conversations? Why is it we don't have these conversations? Why is it we have all these programs here, and yet they don't talk to you all like that? Where are they to have this kind of conversation like we're having tonight, so you can put some of this stuff in its proper context? And then it goes on to a different conversation. Why is it that that doesn't happen? We just did a program about Mr. Tenderism. And I sat here the whole damn time, and I'm like, do y'all realize how much of a missed opportunity that is? Not for us, or not for them, but for us. Why are we not having a conversation about that? Why is it that 3 or 4 of y'all haven't gotten together and reopened the turkey leg hut? What? Damn! I'm not offended by what a white man doing with his. I'm just like, okay, well, hey, if you can do it better here, don't talk about it, be about it. Oh, this is going to hurt some souls here tonight. Let me just be very, very clear. Lindell was a felon and an ex-con. I'm not downing him for that. I'm not dissing him for that. What I'm saying is he didn't come from a privileged background. You sitting out here, you ain't got no felonies. You sitting out here and you free. You sitting out here and ain't got paperwork working against you. All he had was like Scarface. I ain't going to say it exactly the way Scarface said it. But y'all know what he said. He said, all I got is my word and my guts. I'm going to say it like that. All Lindell had was his word and his hustle. And I have literally thousands of you in here. And I'm like, by the way, you do realize you left an asset in Houston, right? You do realize that, right? You do realize that you left an asset in Atlanta, right? It still hurts me about what's crackling. It still hurts me about that. That one still bothers me to this day. We got a bunch of places that were the spot. And if white folk come along, they have no problem reopening it because they see the social and the philosophical and the intellectual value of it. They see that. There's a reason why you can go to the National Association of Black Journalists and they talk about everything except starting the media venture. They don't do that. All these journalists, and what they're really doing is looking for some white folk to put them on. In a day and an era of YouTube where Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly have left cable television to come to the internet, you still have the National Association of Black Journalists still to this day trying to get a job at the network. To this day, still trying to get a job at the newspaper. And that's why they'll write all these long ass articles. They'll write all of these brain rot articles about how all the black folk getting laid off from the company. Oh, MSNBC, when Trump got elected, laying all the black folk off, cutting all the black anchors. CBS News gets bought by Larry Ellison. Barry Weiss goes straight to work, firing all the black folk. People, it's the same old song and dance. Recognize them people are not trying to run nothing or own nothing. All of them just want a job. And the conversation over there will be on that. Simone Sanders is not trying to figure out how to run nothing but her mouth. How embarrassing. You want to talk about your husband being the nightlife mayor of D.C. and by the way, they just want to go from one show to another show. That's their game plan. Can I networks or somebody will get me on a show because they ain't really got what it takes to run something. They are dependent on these other people. It doesn't matter what level you're looking at it in. They're just looking for these other folk to take care of them. That's what they're doing. Say whatever in the hell you want to. Tucker Carlson knew how to get an audience on the internet. He was big on Fox. He has become monumental on the internet. He knew what he was doing. Tucker Carlson is on the internet and bigger than he has ever been. Megyn Kelly is online and bigger than she's ever been. Candace Owens never worked for a TV network and she figured out how to be bigger than she's ever been. Name one of them niggas. He got it, niggas. I sure did.
And deal with it, nigga.
Name one of them niggas who got cut from cable TV who was able to do the same thing. Name one. Melissa Harris Perry, Goldie Taylor, Joyless Reed, Tiffany Cross, Angela Rye on burnt toast. Name one of them. Yes, even Oprah couldn't do it. Oprah could not leave television, come to the internet, make it pop off. None of them, not a one of them has become significant on the internet. None of them. Now, their white counterparts came online and are bigger than they've ever been. In the chat room, let's not talk. Oh, I guess they just naming names, but yeah, none of them. Nobody. I'm talking about news. When it comes to sports, nobody did it except Stephen A. Smith. Now, Stephen A. Smith Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharpe. Let me take that back. In the sports world, Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharpe, all the rest of them dudes, they tread in water. But they're not bigger than they were on cable. Shannon Sharpe is bigger than he was on cable. And yes, somebody gonna come to him with another $100 million bag. You can hate if you want to. I ain't hating on that. Shannon got too fast. That's why on my other YouTube channel I showed y'all that Shannon's still mobbed up with Netflix. Netflix still fooling with him. That's the trigger right there. Shannon was letting y'all know low key he's still plugged in. They like, okay, let the heat die down for a little bit. Let's put some distance between, that little drama. Let's put some distance, and then we're gonna circle the block. Because Shannon ain't sinking. He's not going down. He's not going under. Super Bowl coming up. Go take a look at his channel on YouTube. The numbers are thick. So he don't need cable TV. It's popping where he at. His numbers are thick. The people coming looking for him. They like, all right, go ahead and pay that little slitty broad off and let's get back to talking about football. And that's what they're doing. And that's what they supposed to do. We don't get to talk about Robert Downey Jr. and his drug habit and how many times he done went to jail. So we ain't supposed to even mention Robert Downey Jr. and drug habit and how many times he done been in jail. Then you leave these black men the hell alone. And that includes Diddy. What? Damn! If Robert Downey Jr. can pay his debt to society and then we got to move on, well, damn it, don't say a damn word to nobody. Now, to the coon class, and some of y'all are undercover coons, you know it, you feel it in your bones. You sitting there like the meme of the guy getting on the cell phone. I hate this nigga Jason. Let me call 911. Can they arrest him? That's what we own. If Donald Trump can be president and Robert Downey Jr. can be the biggest damn star in Hollywood, and Justin Bieber can go ahead and make another album, if they can do that, then you can leave these black men alone. You ain't got a damn word to say to them. Tim Allen, Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, okay, then you ain't got a damn word to say. Not one. Nothing. We have a United States Congress and a president running interference for Jeffrey Epstein from the grave. Jeffrey Epstein is dead and buried, and they're protecting him to this day. You better get your ass out my face talking about somebody paying a settlement. Somebody went to prison, and y'all running interference for Jeffrey Epstein from the grave? Get the hell out my face. You don't have anything to say to me about them. Not a word. Not a syllable. So Shannon is still making it do what he do, and mark my words, it's going to be another $100 million contract going to come around the corner. There will be another one. You know why? Because everybody's still fooled with him heavy. There will be another one, and there should be. I ain't hating on Shannon. I'm not hating on Charlemagne. He got a couple $100 million out of iHeart. Hey, go do that. But then I'm going to expect y'all to do something else beyond that. If you just sit up here and ball out, just remember, okay, he's going to be what it's going to be. It's going to be what it's going to be. But just understand, if those folks from cable TV news, if they can make it pop off, they would. They would have done it years ago. They can't. They would have done it years ago, and they can't. That's the problem. They don't have what it takes. They never have. And it's not going to change. We'll be here in 30 years, and they will still be trying to figure out if they can get another contract from cable TV. That's where they're going to be. That's all it's going to be. So the conversation that we're having here, they're not interested in that conversation. I got some coons in the chat room mad as hell, boys. Just me. You roasting them on MLK days. They mad up in here. That's right. We giving you fits. You can't say that it's some pirate program that's got 3 folk listening. Yeah, I know it's burning you alive. I'm here to roast you here. You can go ahead and scream. We're going to go ahead and roast you. Nah, folks, if they can make it pop off, they would have. Y'all need to understand, these people live in New York. They live in L.A. They don't have the talent. They don't have the ability. When you had to turn tricks to get your little panel job or whatever, or kiss ass to get it. See, on the internet, kissing ass will not keep you where you are. If you can't give the people the quality and caliber that they want, kissing ass, there's no manager here that you can kiss ass on who's going to force people to watch you. That's the problem on the internet. There is no executive who will force people to watch you because you're the only thing on at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. You have to earn it over here. And what they're showing is they can't earn it. They need a network to support them. They need a network to prop them up. They need a network to do that. So now when they got to swim and fend for themselves, they don't know how to talk to the streets. They only know how to talk to the politicians they kiss ass on and go to their little cocktail parties and their little orgies with. Those are the only folk they know how to talk to. They don't talk to the street and they can't talk for the street. Now they got put on the street. Oh, hell, that's a hell of a spot to be in. You don't know how to speak to the street or for the street, and you've been put out on the street. And you don't have a vocabulary to speak to the street. Oh, hell, you're just going to go down. You're just going to go down. That's it. It's a wrap. And this is good. Because you see, here's the issue right here. The issue right here is that if they had stood 10 toes down, it would have been a different thing. It would have been a new day. If they had been talking about the subjects that we're talking about here now, if they had been talking about Dr. King, and let me just go ahead and remind folk there that John Lewis is no longer even mentioned. What? John Lewis is no longer even mentioned, people. Just a reminder to you here. They tried for a minute. They thought they were going to get us to lionize John Lewis. Do y'all see that and gave that up? They've given up on that. That baby got snuffed out in the crib. They couldn't make John Lewis a thing at all. They tried to make John Lewis a thing and found out, oh, this dog ain't going to hunt for a minute. There's nothing here. Do y'all see them trying to push John Lewis as a thing anymore? When's the last time they tried to make him a thing or make him an icon anymore, y'all? When's the last time that happened? When's the last time that happened? They've lost control. They have completely lost control of the narrative. They've completely lost control of the conversation. All the sock puppets they tried to prop up, all of them have gotten deflated and crashed and burned. Can't do nothing with them. And even when it comes to MLK Day, now they're falling back on that too. Did you notice? Have you noticed that, by the way, as Dr. King is becoming increasingly troublesome, as Dr. King has become increasingly troublesome. They're now pulling back on talking about him too. Oh, they used to ride that heavy. Now that we're reminding people of the true story of Dr. King, now he's becoming troublesome. Now they pulling back on talking about him. We don't really want to speak on that anymore because people are looking to hear more than I have a dream. They want to hear about we coming for that check. And that's a conversation the broadcast media does not want to open, because when you open that discussion, it will make you responsible for bringing this up when them Democrats come walking through there pretending that they are our allies. When they show up, hey, Bernie Sanders, black folk coming for their check. And you see, their job is to make sure that you don't make a viral moment. Oh, yeah, one more thing. I got to remind you all about that. Oh, we're hitting on all cylinders here tonight. One more thing. Hey, you remember that Wolf Blitzer hit Bernie Sanders up about reparations? And Bernie Sanders, had to sit there and soft shoe and whatnot and dance around about that, because Wolf Blitzer hit him up about reparations. Hey, y'all, did Wolf Blitzer ever hit Hillary Clinton up about that?
What? Damn!
Oh, yeah, one more thing. Yeah. The corporate media, they had no problem confronting Bernie Sanders about reparations. Well, they wanted to ask him about that. Y'all, did Wolf Blitzer ever quiz Hillary Clinton about reparations? Because we all know that the Democrats, they claim they were trying to sink his campaign. The folks who were riding for Bernie claimed the Democrats wanted to sink their campaign. I have my own thoughts about that, but you know what? Giving you the benefit of the doubt. Well, I guess there could be some circumstantial evidence to that, because, by the way, I can show you proof of questions that they asked Bernie that he was obviously uncomfortable with, that they never even suggested to Hillary. Wolf Blitzer, did he ever quiz Hillary about reparations and whether we should get that, or did she get a pass on that question, but they made sure to ask him? Oh, yeah. This is a conversation that they don't have. And one more thing, MSNBC wasn't going to ask it either. Please tell me, where has there ever been a reparations platform by any of their black hosts on MS Now? It is MS Now. Did they ever make reparations a subject? Because we know they made LGBT a subject, and abortion a subject, and illegal aliens a subject. But by the way, did your black hosts ever put this issue front and center? Oh, they never did. All right. So as you can see, they don't want a platform or an outfit that has this conversation. Their goal is to bury it. And now that we see that they use Dr. King to try to detour us and try to run us off the road, they use Dr. King to try to sabotage us. Now we have dug into the real Dr. King, and now we're sitting up here playing clips for them of Dr. King saying exactly what we said. Well, now Dr. King can't be used anymore. Or at least he cannot be misused anymore. Well, if he can't be misused, then he can't be used. They don't want to keep reminding you of Dr. King if all that's going to remind you of is, oh yeah, by the way, I'm here to get that check Dr. King told you about. Yeah, I still need to get my bread. Yeah, Dr. King dropped a note. He dropped a note for me here. He dropped a note and said, hey, by the way, don't forget to go pick up my check. So yeah, I'm here to get that bread. This is a very old receipt you have. Okay, it's got no expiration date. So yeah, y'all been bull jiving. So yeah, but yeah, we still here for it. So I need you to quit shucking and jiving. Dr. King said we coming to get our check. Well, I'm here for it. Ooh, you know, are you sure he meant the same check you talking about? He meant the same one I'm talking about. Their goal has been to make sure that we never had this conversation. So they spent decades etching Dr. King's name in your mind so you couldn't forget it. And then they gave you a message that was concocted by them. And now Dr. King is still in your minds. And we're like, by the way, there's a whole different message. And no, we are not going to let that go. I would be remiss if I did not remind you. I would be remiss if I did not remind you all that Dr. King was a young man. Dr. King was a young man. He was only 39 years old. He was only 39 years old. And these evil, wicked, white supremacist bastards targeted a 39-year-old. Father, 4 children. And these monsters killed him anyway. And I want you to think about your life. A 39-year-old. Especially one who's internationally known. They're thinking about many things. They aspire to many things. They don't aspire for their life to be cut short like anybody else. He's thinking about all the things he's got in front of him, all the things he's got to do. I got babies to take care of here. I'm not trying to leave my wife a widow. I'm not trying to do that. He meant what he said there when they played that. He meant that. He said, I don't have a martyr complex. He wanted to let y'all know, I don't have a martyr complex. I'm not here saying, oh, think about how famous I'll be dead. That wasn't what he wanted. This was a young man. Hadn't even made it to middle age yet. 4 young children. And at the forefront of his mind was the fact that he understood that they're out to kill. That you're target number 1. He could have kept his head low. He could have kept his head down, and he could have kept his head low. He could have stopped moving around. He could have said, you know what, let me fall back on showing up for these calls and these events and the sanitation workers. Let me just fall back on that. He could have done that. Maybe he should have done that. But he didn't. That was how strong his commitment to us was. And I want you to understand that when you have somebody like that, don't let anybody distort his memory or his legacy or his record. Dr. King paid the cost in blood. He paid the cost in sacrificing his time with his own children. You don't let anybody disrespect or disgrace someone who has that level of commitment. He put his commitment to us ahead of his wife and his children. There is no argument about that. You saw the man get killed. You saw his children are still here, most of them. He was gone. If he was worried about them first and foremost, he would have given in to the intimidation. He would have given in to the threats. He would have given in to the threats of his life and been like, I got to stay in the house. I can't go outside. I got to stay here and take care of my family. That's what he would have done, but he didn't. He didn't. And you think I'm going to back down if somebody threatens a YouTube channel? You think I'm going to back down if they threaten a YouTube channel? Our martyrs etched their commitment to us in blood. And you think a YouTube channel is going to intimidate me? See, they don't know what they're dealing with here. They don't understand that when you all look at Dr. King or Malcolm X or any of our other revered saints, you say to yourself that there's an unpaid debt there. There's a debt that you owe. You. I'm not talking about the white supremacist society. I'm talking about you. There's a debt that we owe to these icons. That if this is how committed that they were to us, how much more so do we need to honor them? The Bible says, no greater love hath a man than to lay down his life for his friends. No greater love hath a man than to lay down his life for his people. And here we are, grandchildren. We wasn't even alive when the man was killed, much less when he was born. We weren't even alive, and we owe that to him. We owe that to him and all of the others. And that is why it has been imperative that we seize back his legacy and remind people of who that man really was, and that we are not going to allow you to do what the civil rights generation did and to distort his memory and distort his story and change his history into something that never happened and turn Dr. King into a traitor against his own people. We are not going to allow that. The train for that has derailed. So you might as well go ahead and let him go, because you don't control this narrative anymore. No, we woke up and realized something when we dug into him and dug past your lies. We realized the thing that horrified you most. You were hoping we wouldn't find it out, and we did. We found out that Dr. King is one of us.
I told you all that I was the greatest of all time. I told you today I'm still the greatest of all time.
You wanted us to think that Dr. King was one of you. And we kept digging into it and found out that, the folk who controlled the story and told the history's told by the victors, well, yeah, they created a false Dr. King. And when you dig into him, you see, he was one of us. He was one of us. Well, no wonder Norman Lear and CBS and everybody else got together and said, okay, let me tell you, don't go listen to him. Listen to what we got to say. Dr. King was one of us. Dr. King had our goals. The exact same things he was saying 6 decades ago, 7 decades ago, we're saying it now. We're saying the exact same thing. Only we're saying it louder. We're saying the exact same thing, only we're saying it louder. That's what we're doing. And that's an important thing to have. Because they were hoping to squash that and extinguish it. And in the words of James Baldwin, the fire next time. See, the ancestors were trying to tell them something. Please understand, the fire next time will be hotter and brighter than the fire last time. You think you're going to extinguish it? Ain't happening. The fire next time will be hotter and brighter than the fire last time. But the fires are still burning, and it's hotter than it's ever been. And I just want you all to understand that you and me and us and we are continuing Dr. King's work. We are continuing the work of pursuing universal justice. We are continuing the work of bringing comfort to the afflicted and affliction to the comfortable. Because if we cannot all be equally comfortable, then we will all be equally uncomfortable. If you will not deliver justice to us, we will not allow you to practice injustice for yourself. And Dr. King warned you that future generations would see the church as irrelevant. What he was warning them was that you will not be able to send the next generation of clergy to talk to the young. The next generation of clergy, their words will fall on deaf ears with the young people. He warned them that that would occur. His prophecy has come to pass. The words of their church clergymen fall on deaf ears, as he warned them it would. And we are continuing his work. He told you we coming for our check. You thought killing him would stop the conversation, and we're here to remind you, oh yeah, about that check. You need to cut the check. And now they're seeing that even in the political space that we don't want to have a conversation about anything except what you owe. Jason, what is the timeline on our getting what we are owed? The exact same timeline that Dr. King did. There isn't a timeline on it. We will be here until we get it, period. They can just give up on the idea of waiting us out. You're not going to be able to wait us out. You're not going to be able to wait till we get weak about it. You are not going to be able to do any of those things. That is not going to occur. Not at all. Not at all. When you look outside the gates, you will see us still out here with our swords and our spears and our shields. We are not going away. This is not going to be a siege and we get tired and go home. Ain't going to be no kick back and kick it party. Ain't going to be the turn up spot. Right here in front of your gates is the turn up spot. And we will be here until we have what is ours. Only now you owe a lot more. Dr. King, you were a young man. You were a young man who sacrificed literally everything for people that you did not know, children that you did not give birth to or have, individuals who would be in your debt and you would never meet them. And I just want you to know that wherever you are out there, we are grateful. We understand that we owe you a debt that can never be repaid, but it can sure as hell be fought like hell for. And that we are a better people because you showed us how to do it. You showed us what it was worth, and you showed us how to do it. Rest in power. We'll take it from here. We're going to go ahead and wrap up tonight's program here. As always, I want to thank all of my brothers and all of my sisters from around the world who have contributed to support tonight's program here. Thank you very much to my man, Mr. Richburg. Mr. Richburg is always on deck for that, so thank you very much for your support there. We appreciate that. Shout out to Donnell, Keenan, Jay Granterism, Logic Before Emotion, For My Peoples, Michelle Halleck. Thank you very much. You're amazing. Christopher Lee and everybody else here who's tuned in tonight's program. This has become our practice here. For those of you who do not remember, I have been doing this since the very beginning. This is not new. I have done this since the very beginning. You know what a person values by what they're willing to sacrifice. Other folk out there, and y'all know who they are. I mean, y'all know who really ain't about this kind of life. Holidays show up and they disappear. Y'all niggas crazy. Y'all need to take some time off. So, you know your old Uncle Rufus. You know the old fakers. You know them. And I just want you to understand that that's why we're here, because this is what we sacrifice. Yeah, we could take a day off with everybody else. We deliberately show up here because it's harder to do this. It's harder to show up here than it is to just take off with everybody else. And that's why we're here, because this is harder. So you know that this is what we truly believe in, because this is the hard part. The easy part's over there with you taking it easy on the day off. The hard part is over here doing this. Yeah, that means you know that we really believe in this. We truly believe in it. And that's why I'm honored to have all of you here with me. People like my man Andrew L. People like Lee. People like Nancy. To all my brothers and all my sisters around the world, the reason that we are here is because this is what we truly believe in. The government did not give us this day. This is a day that we took. The government did not give this to us. You can't give to me something that doesn't belong to you. This is ours. And what frightens them is that if you have this kind of dedication in a world that they've nerfed and coddled you in, and they told you, hey, you can take the day off, and you said, damn that, I got work to do. Don't you understand that they realize, whoa, you're a new breed. You're not the one I was raising. You're not the one I created. You're something different. And when I started, our ranks were counted in hundreds. Now our ranks are counted in hundreds of thousands and millions. It's a new day. So I want to take a moment to salute all of you, my fellow soldiers in the struggle. I want to take a moment to salute all of you and recognize all of you, that this act of resistance, I know when we first started doing this almost 2 decades ago, it seemed irrelevant, didn't it? But now that you understand that it is these acts of resistance that change a whole culture. Just saying, I am not going to take any time off. Shout out Jonathan Hamilton. Thank you very much. Just you all having this act of resistance that you could take it easy and you won't. I want you to realize that, by the way, this is what changes cultures and changes nations. When other people see that this is how seriously you take it. For those of you who were here with me almost 2 decades ago, remember, we didn't have 3,000 people here on a holiday. We barely had 200 people here. So if you ever questioned or wondered if what we did mattered, if it counted, if it had an effect, did it really matter? Yes, it did. And yes, it does. Like Dr. King, not just for us, but for those who come after us, they will know how to do it because they saw how we did it. They won't have to question how you do it. They already had a role model and an example. All they have to do is plug in and keep it pushing. Just like with Dr. King, All we had to do was plug in and keep it pushing. I want to thank all of you for tuning in to tonight's program, live or recorded. Thank you all for liking, subscribing, and sharing. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, your fellow soldier, the Black Authority. And until next time, to all of my brothers and all of my sisters from all around the world, remember, eat this, drink this, sleep this, think this, breathe this, feel this, live this, love this. It is everything that we and Dr. King were and are. Black first.